Welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader, and tonight we'll be focusing on the Egyptian-Chinese relations. As we did see in the past couple of days, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi attending the opening ceremony of the 24th Winter Olympics in Beijing. And following that inauguration ceremony, the talks that took place between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing, the focus on those talks between both presidents of Egypt and China, and the main issues that were tackled and the discussions that were made during those meetings. I'm honored to be having tonight on the Daily Debate Ambassador Jailan Allam, the former Assistant Foreign Minister, to be shedding more light on those meetings. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. First of all, we'll be starting with a report about the attendance of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to the opening ceremony of the 24th Winter Olympics in Beijing, as well as a number of heads of states and governments from all over the world, along with the Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi discussed on Saturday with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing economic and industrial cooperation, especially in the production of the coronavirus vaccines and electric vehicles. The presidency said that the Chinese president said that President al-Sisi's visit contributed to cementing the distinguished ties between the two countries. He also expressed his appreciation for the development of bilateral strategic relations in various fields, particularly in the economic and trade fields. He lauded the boost in political communication and consultation between the two countries on regional and international issues. Xi said that China holds Egypt in high regard for the pivotal role it always played in the Middle East, Africa, and the Eastern Mediterranean. President al-Sisi, meanwhile, said that Egypt was keen to build on the accelerating momentum resulting from the regular meetings between senior officials from Egypt and China to bolster cooperation on multiple fronts, especially in the economic and trade fields, and to attract more Chinese investments to Egypt. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi also tackled with Xi boosting cooperation in industrial and information technologies, as well as the manufacturing of electric vehicles. In addition, the two presidents discussed the means to boost trade and joint projects. They also talked about the important role the Suez Canal Economic Zone plays in boosting China's Belt and Road Initiative through the Egyptian-Chinese Economic and Commercial Zone. The two leaders discussed ways to cooperate on the development of Africa and means of coordination between African countries and China to benefit from the Belt and Road Initiative.
Welcome back. One of the main topics that were tackled during the talks and the discussions between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and President Xi Jinping of China was the cooperation between China and Africa. Ambassador Jailan Allam, how do you see the importance of the Egyptian-African relations and, of course, the Chinese-African relations, as today we saw President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receiving the President of Djibouti as well?
It's a very vibrant relationship, and it's a very intricate one and intensive one at the very same time. China is really trying to be of a very prominent presence in Africa.
Yes.
And it is going on with Egypt, because Egypt, we always talk about Egypt being at the entrance of Africa and its historical relations with African countries.
Yes.
And therefore, I think China is trying to make a marriage between its wish and ambitions for presence in Africa, and also with the presence of an African partner, which is Egypt. So I think there is a good understanding on this, and China is really getting very close to Egypt in terms of its relationship, because both countries are basing their external affairs diplomacy, so to speak, based on non-interference in internal affairs of countries with which we want to deal. unlike the conservative, usual kind of foreign cooperation with country. And I think this came as a very good way of handling things. This is where Egypt and China meet in terms of vision and strategy toward the continent. So I think we are on the proper path with that. Africa is a huge continent. It's 54 countries. It has a lot of resources, very prominent resources. Most of the world industry and technology is working on and using the African resources. So I think China is playing with this because China is has the largest population in the world. It's the fourth largest country in terms of area. I mean, it has like 9,500,000 kilometers, square kilometers. So it is now the #2 economy in the world. And expectations are that by 2030 it will become #1. So it sees the potential in Africa, both as a source of crude materials and also as a huge market opening. Egypt, in the middle of all this, has 100+ million of consumers, and therefore there is here a need for a very vibrant strategic relationship between the two countries.
Yes, there is a very clear agenda from China and Egypt towards Africa, but how did the bilateral relations between Egypt and the African continent it got enhanced in the past 7 or 8 years under the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi? How did it change in those 7 or 8 years compared to the previous years before that?
I think one of the main traits of President al-Sisi is presidential diplomacy. That is, he moves a lot, he travels a lot, and he wants to do it himself. He wants to be the one in front of the face because it gives it stamina, it gives it inertia, and it gives the status that you want Egypt to appear with. Because in the previous years before the Sisi presidency, there was a lack of communication between leadership in Egypt and leadership in African countries. Almost, I cannot see how many. While President Sisi is very active in terms of meeting, traveling and receiving also. We have had a lot of visits from African presidents to Egypt during and we have taken up the presidency of the African group in 2019. And we did a lot in there. I mean, it was a very vibrant and a very hectic and full with action. So I think this is basically, the Egyptian diplomacy basically is working in different terms. It's working under different umbrellas and is a different vision that we don't interfere in internal relations. We seek international cooperations on fair grounds. We seek international cooperation that is intended to develop the country and to raise the level of the standard of the people. So I think in this way we are in line with the Chinese, and I think this is what Africa needs. We need really a very serious endeavor in Africa, basically to build up the basic infrastructure in Africa. It needs that. If Egypt had dreams, we have dreams. Cape to Cairo road. Yes. So you need technology, you need investment, you need the willful power of countries to undertake that. This is a magnificent project. Egypt is envisioning a maritime road between Lake Victoria and the Mediterranean Sea. This is another mega project that it needs the same. It needs investment, it needs technology, it needs the willpower of countries involved to put the effort, to put the human resources and the power into that. So I think we are on the right, slowly but surely, hopefully.
You've mentioned that we were heading the African Union in 2019, and we did receive the president of Senegal, for example, in the past week.
Yes.
And President Assisi was also speaking about exchanging the expertise between Egypt and Senegal, and today we have the president of Djibouti as well. So how can we be exchanging those experiences politically, and more specifically heading the African Union, for example, for a whole year? That's a big responsibility for the continent. What can change throughout this year following those meetings, the last of which was today between the President of Egypt and the President of Djibouti?
Usually countries have negotiations and exchange advice and exchange visions of what they do. For example, we have this eminent problematic of the GERD, so to speak, the Renaissance Dam with Ethiopia, regarding the Nile waters. Senegal and ECOWAS country have a wonderful expertise in this. And actually Senegal, during its year of presidency, proposed that Egypt and Ethiopia and Sudan might wish to draw on that experience and do it. But Ethiopia has a particular way of doing and acting in this fashion. But this could have been a window of opportunity for Egypt and Sudan and Ethiopia to benefit from that expertise. Also, in terms of exports, Egyptian exports to these countries, Egyptian imports of crude material from this country, enhancing their stand in international arenas and forums, pushing for solutions for Africa. For example, Egypt is hosting the COP27, that is the conference, Sharm el-Sheikh. So which continent is mostly affected by gas emissions coming from industrialized countries more than Africa?
And producing the least
emissions. And actually it is almost, I mean, it's when I read the statistic, it was really funny, because it's a 0.07% of those emissions. So actually you can say it is really not producing any emissions. And then Africa is surrounded by water all around. If you look at it, it's surrounded by water all around. So it is not a real threat for the climate, in terms of climate change and its impact. But still, it is one of the most affected, negatively affected countries due to climate emissions and climate change coming from the north. So Egypt, hosting this conference, is working and having Africa as its target, and it is its priority. What can we do for Africa in terms of imposing and pushing and availing and thinking of ways and means, both technological and financial, to alleviate this kind of threat on the African countries and the African economies and the African people? That's one way of looking at it.
Yes, if we return to the meeting and the discussions that took place between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Chinese President on Saturday and afterwards, the importance of having a good bilateral relationship between Egypt and China, as you mentioned, the #2 economy in the world, one of the biggest in the world, one of the highest populations of the world. And we are speaking about exchanging experience as well and expertise on the cultural level, the touristic level, having more investments, the political and the economic level. What can that change in Egypt in the near future?
It has changed dramatically in the Chinese-Egyptian relationship. I mean, Egypt was the first African, Arab, Middle East country to acknowledge China as a state in 1956. So that was a beginning. It was a big beginning for that. And I presume that those who are studying some of the reasons why we had in Egypt this 1956 tripartite aggression, it's because Egypt privatization of the Suez Canal, nationalization of the Suez Canal, but I think that also part of it, if we look at it from the international perspective, it was that action that Egypt took in May 1956 to acknowledge and to recognize China as a state. Egypt recognized China as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council in 1971, and that was another way of. So relationship in terms of policy, of how we look at the world, of how we deal with the world, are very similar between the two countries. Now, since 1956, we have had this kind of economic relation, but it didn't grow. It grew only during the 1980s and 1990s and 20s and the 21st century, this 20 years from this century. And funny enough, that COVID-19 was a reason why even during this very critical 2 years that the world has been since 2019 until now, that really damaged the international economy, the traveling, the social status of countries, how Europe got isolated, encircled itself, how the United States is taking a very isolative posture. You will realize that Egypt and China got too much closer. China has in Egypt $7.7 billion of investment. It allowed around 40,000 jobs for people. China exports to Egypt go around $12 billion in 2020, while Egypt exports to China around 870 million. So you can see the discrepancy between the flow of trade between the two countries. But it is there, the relationship is there, and it's in every aspect. You will see that China has a particular interest in the eastern economic area of the Suez Canal. You will see that China is having, we have a Confucius University in Egypt. We have Confucius centers in Egypt. We have 24,000 Chinese studying the Arabic dialect in Egypt. You have students studying for masters and doctorate in China. So there is on every single level I can think of the number of companies that are working in the Chinese companies working in Egypt are around, we have around 1,500 companies, Chinese companies working in Egypt, having businesses in Egypt. So it is an immense and tremendous relationship, very intricate and very vibrant also.
A very important project between both countries is the Belt and Road project as well.
The BRI, yes.
What is the importance of having Egypt being involved in it?
Well, Egypt is one of the main issues and the main points in that belt, and it's strange enough that it does match with our 2030 vision of the Egyptian 2030 vision of how the Egyptian economy would look like. But it came, I mean, and the BRI, the Belt and Road, came out in 2013. Our 2030 came in 2016. So after having seen that China has been moving all the way from China, all the way to Central Asia, going towards Egypt, I mean south of the Indian Ocean and going towards Egypt. Of course, I mean, if you have ambitions, economic ambitions, structural ambitions, and there is a partner that is willing to help you with that, that is not have requests or have implications for your sovereignty, for your borders, for your internal political system, I think China represents all of that. And this is why it is welcome in Egypt, and it is welcome in most of the African countries, and in most of the country where it works. So there is a mating and matching point here between the two, and then according to the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, there is a lot of potential investment, financial investment coming into the country.
Yes.
So you open industries, you allow working opportunities for Egyptians. All of this makes the political relationship very close, makes the economic relationship very vibrant, very intricate, and very, very much up to all the levels. And this is, I mean, President Sisi has visited China since 2014 6 times. This visit to attend the opening of the Winter Olympics is the 6th visit in 8 years. I think this is a record number of dealing between the two leaders of the two countries, because this is the quickest, as we mentioned, that diplomacy at the level of presidents at the highest level is very effective, and it brings results very quickly. And I think this is the thinking of President El-Sisi. Let me do the job and finish it up.
This is, as you mentioned, the 6th time that President El-Sisi had visited China in the past 7 or 8 years. But this is a very important visit, and a visit of a statement, because there was a political boycott for the Winter Olympics from the United States, Canada, the UK.
A diplomatic boycott, yes.
And Australia as well. What does this say from Egypt to China now?
Well, it says a lot of things. It says that Olympics, that sports is a soft power that should not be damaged or imposed or suppressed by political considerations. I myself, sometimes I wonder that we are all the time being blamed and criticized for human rights situations, so to speak. What about human rights situations in those countries who blame us for that? I mean, all this immigration postures and pictures, sad pictures that we see. Haven't we seen people frozen on the borders of Europe and the United States because of cold in Canada? So what is it to blame here? I think if we look carefully and we have the bravery and the courage to say it, that there is a lot of compromises into the human rights vision. And the human rights are not only the political rights, they are the economic rights. I mean, if people don't eat, don't sleep well, don't have a home, a roof over their head, what is the point in having political rights? It's not human. Humans basically look for their first needs, for their children to go to schools, to find hospitals when they are sick, to find good roads, to find all the basic needs that they... And basic needs are not only political needs or democracy. We have seen democracy, how it has evolved. And now there are a lot of criticism for the type of democracy that is being run in these countries, and their vision and their attitude and their posture vis-à-vis a lot of human rights vis-à-vis other countries. So I think that here we have to see it from that vantage point and see how we can work together, all of us work together for a better future for humanity, for a peaceful future of humanity. I think the situation in the Ukraine presented itself as a real test for where do the Western world, so to speak, wants to see the world. And I think they are stuck in that situation, and I think, from my own person, that they really failed the test.
On the other hand, the human rights aspect for China and for Egypt, we seem to be having the same point of view towards that, because the same statements made by the Chinese president during the meeting, Xi Jinping. We had the same statements released by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi during the World Youth Forum, that we need, if we can speak about the human rights of having a house, somewhere to live, something to eat,
safety, security,
roads. So we have the same vision.
Absolutely. I mean now, for example, extremism and terrorism are really a virus. It's a world virus. It's a pandemic in the world, and everybody is. So why isn't the world working together on that? We are not. We stood for that. I mean, Egypt stood very harshly for that and said, don't impose this on me, because I have another problem to look at and I have to solve it. And China is the same. They have the problems. And I think that non-interference in the internal affairs of countries, unless there is really a flagrant situation. But even in Europe, they have I mean, we see pictures of people dying in the streets, of people hungry, of people not having enough to go to a home, of lack of jobs. I mean, let us, very simply, let us look at what COVID-19 did in Europe. People, how many hundreds of thousands of jobs have been lost? How people now are living on the state allowances that they gave them, and how people are dying. This is not happening in this part of the world. People are sustaining each other. The system is sustaining people. So I think that the world, and I think that Egypt should take that point, that we have to really review our vision, the world understanding of what really human rights stand for, and make it the format for internationalization. I mean, while the United States is really trying to isolate itself and isolate the world and go away from multilateral organizations now, we hardly hear now about the World Health Organization because of COVID-19. But what about the other international organization? No voice on the arena. And of course, I mean, people are not traveling anymore to attend these meetings. It's all virtual now. But still, there is some kind of hindering of the activities of all of this for the better of humanity. If climate change has affected us so much, to the extent that we are 7.8 billion people living on the planet, and the planet is saying, I am having enough, I can't take it anymore. This is what the climate change, and we have seen this winter and this summer in Egypt, so that our climate is changing. So I think that humanity and leaders, wise leaders, have to cut together and work together on all these issues. And this is, I think, the track that both Egypt and China is going through.
Yes, having the same vision, especially during the times of the coronavirus pandemic. And we did see on Friday the inauguration or the opening ceremony of the 24th Winter Olympics, a message of hope and peace to the world, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was there attending in a message of support to China and the Chinese president. We'll be having more about the Egyptian-Chinese bilateral relations throughout history and up till now in the upcoming report.
Egyptian-Chinese relations have long been described by experts and analysts as a role model in international relations between countries. China has always been interested in cooperation with Egypt in the health field, and the Belt and Road Initiative, which is set to contribute to this matter, as it will represent a way to enhance cooperation between the countries involved in it. Cairo and Beijing have not halted cooperation in the medical field since the outbreak of the coronavirus, as they exchanged information and medical experience through constant video conference meetings. Chinese direct investment in Egypt has reached $35 million in the same period, and the total investment volume exceeded $7 billion. Concerning the coronavirus vaccine developed in China by Sinovac Biotech, the Chinese president has pledged since the outbreak of the pandemic to make African countries among the first to benefit from the vaccine. On May 30, 2021, Egypt and China celebrated the 64th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Relations between Egypt and China have been evolving since a meeting between President Gamal Abdel Nasser and Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai in 1955, where they agreed to establish formal diplomatic relations, which materialized in 1956. Egypt was the first Arab, African, and Middle Eastern country to establish an embassy in Beijing. Moreover, membership at the United Nations with a firm belief that it was the rightful representative of the Chinese people. China has also supported Egypt during all its hardships and in 2 decades that followed, thereby paving the road for a prosperous relationship based on the mutual respect and support. Relations between the two countries further shined and evolved remarkably under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, with a mutual vision to upgrade relations between the two countries.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate. Ambassador Jailan, Allam, as we did see, the bilateral relations between Egypt and China have been enhanced in the past 7 or 8 years and, of course, throughout history. Speaking of the investments, the opportunities of having more investments in Egypt from China, as you mentioned, we have a deficit in the trade balance between Egypt and China. How can we be increasing and leveling this balance a little bit every year?
Well, it's a big discrepancy. I have to, we have to admit it's a big discrepancy, but it is an. I think we can understand it. We can understand it. I mean, you are talking about a second largest economy and a trader in the world, and a country that is really striving and trying very hard throughout many years and many prospects to improve on the potential that it has. It has a potential, we have to say, but it's not a potential. It would be unfair to compare it with the potential that is available to China. It would not be a balanced approach. But I think that we have to work harder. Even, I mean, we can ask. I mean, we can ask and plan for Chinese investments for Egypt that promotes exports to China and exports to Africa and exports to Europe, because we are really strategically located. We are a very lucky country that we have this location in geopolitics. And in geopolitics, this means a lot. So I think that one smart way of handling this is to encourage investments, Chinese investments in Egypt. We have a lot of free trade areas in Egypt around the Suez Canal, I mean in the Suez Canal, and it can be established in anywhere in Egypt, and so that we can enhance the possibilities of working opportunities for Egyptians. Egypt had a youth representation in its population of around 60%. 60% of the Egyptian population is below 40 years old. So we have the potential, the energy and the inertia to manage this kind of projects. And we have to do that. We have to go the smart way, is to establish projects, industries that promote exports abroad. And also, that would allow you to minimize imports from abroad. Now technology and is allowing, and artificial intelligence is allowing you a lot of opportunities that were not here before. And I think we are still not using what is available to us to its full potential. I think we can do that as a priority for the future of our, not only our relationships, but for the future of our future generations here in Egypt.
Yes, the future generations of Egypt, President Sisi always speaks about the future and the future generations, and this is why we are having a leap in infrastructure. For example, we are having new cities, a new capital, new roads. How can this attract foreign investments from China and from all over the world to be seeing a new republic, a new Egypt, that there is new infrastructure, it is easier to be going through cities and going from Cairo to the new administrative capital in an easy and the smart and a short way. What can this tell the investors about the future of the country to be investing here in the country?
Well, I think you have to address the mentality of those in charge of promoting your investment opportunities. You have to be able to address it from the vantage point of how attractive and how beneficial it is to the others. You have to put this in a nice envelope.
Be marketing it.
That is the smart marketing. And with smart marketing, you are able. And then you have to have the laws that allow you to handle this kind and not really create crisis and hiccups at every stage of every project, that people really get fed up and tired of continuing and say, don't go. You will not be able to face what you're up to. I think we have to be more pragmatic, more efficient, more change our way of thinking of things, of addressing issues, of addressing our future. Be more marketable, be more smart, be more intelligent in putting your needs to others, and then handling them and tackling them and things. And then you have to breed your new generations to have that, not really to go through the usual conservative, careful, serious, afraid of taking different positions or different ideas, or even innovative. I mean, now technology we are getting through an amazing world that is artificial intelligence and technology and information systems that are growing. And the whole world is going into digitalized. Why we are just, having one step ahead and 10 backward. And this is how China did it. This is how China did it. It opened to the world, and it just went with a new mentality, and that new mentality allowed it to have resources, allowed it to have a potential for financing what other countries need. So I think we need to study very well, or to look very well into the depths of the Chinese experience in this and follow it through and breed our new generations and our new leaders through the same process.
To be having future generations and new generations, we need a new mindset. Can you see this happening? A new mindset, a new culture, a new mentality for the new generations here in Egypt? To be dealing with the new technology as well, and the new cities and the new roads?
So far I haven't. But even those who have it, they don't have the access to the kind of power that they need to enhance these views. We have to seek new leadership. Listen, all over the world, older generations have experience, and they're willing to give it to new generations.
Yes.
But we have created here in Egypt, in a fantastic way, we have created this sense of, oh, these elderly people, they don't know nothing. We are the ones who can type on boards, so let's leave them out of the system. So if you don't have a backup, you cannot go forward. You need somebody to push you, to sustain you, to support you. And the system does not support or sustain or give you the opportunity. So people or the youth do not dare to fight against the system or saying this is not working, or even propose. And when they propose, is it taken by? I was really hoping that going through the new republic, which I think will be declared on the 30th of June 2022 from the new administrative capital.
Yes.
But looking at how things are happening, we are still building buildings there. People are not trained to go there. How is the transportation system go there? I mean, how many people do we have working in the system in Egypt, in Cairo, or in other places who are going to be transported and having their work going from there? We don't hear it. Maybe it is there, but we don't hear it, we don't see it. It is not being marketed, it is not being shown to the people. So people, you are not building what you mentioned as mindset for that new change. And bringing it, you know, proud, yet nicely manageable youth to do that job for their country. I think we are at a period in our history that is going to go very slowly, and I think we have to take that leap very soon in terms of mindset, of laws, and of actions also.
Yes, and hopefully in the future, in the near future, we will be seeing that Ambassador Jailan.
I certainly hope so, and share that with you.
Yes.
And let us hope that we have a happy ending to our soccer team working on the
Africa Cup of Nations final.
Absolutely.
Yes. Ambassador Jailan Allam, the former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
My pleasure. Pleasure being with you.
Pleasure is all mine. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. And as Ambassador Jailan Allam said, good luck to Egypt against Senegal in the final. Thank you for watching and goodbye.